Okay, so for the clown design, we're going to use a Paradise white, so not the other white in the kit. It's important to use this one because it's soft and will make a really nice smooth base. The other one will be too sticky and will leave lots of lines. So you can spray this one. So give it a little, I'll do that off camera a little bit so I don't spray your face. And then I'm using this Petal Sponge, and I'm just rubbing gently across the cake. And you want a nice creamy consistency. Don't have it too wet. If it's too dry, you can always wet it again. So you want a nice sort of soft consistency, and then just basically start to pat or stipple it around your face. You can give it a little bit of an edge. So you should be getting something that looks very slightly powdery. And then I'm just turning the sponge. You don't need to worry about the eyes on this design for the white because there's going to be some colour on the eyes. Alright, so the next thing I'm going to do is we're using this rainbow cake which has got red down to white. We're going to use this cake to make some shapes and colour over the eyes, and I'm going to use a similar sponge. So I'm just spraying the sponge until you don't want water dripping out of it, but it does need to be fairly wet. And then I'm going to aim to get all the colours on the sponge here. So I'm squeezing the side of the sponge and I'm pressing quite firmly and pulling across a few times to get all the colours onto the sponge. And these sponges are teardrop shaped. They're designed to be used around the eyes. Okay. So if you close your eyes, so I'm just going to, with the petal point on the inside, I'm just going to start there quite gently, and then I'm going to just gently, almost stamping this colour onto the eyes. I'm just going to turn this a little bit more, sort of a little bit more vertically, because I want for the clown the red to be more on the top. The next stage here is I'm just going to put a tiny bit of blush on, and just for ease of equipment, we're just going to use the same paint, but it needs to be really light. So I'm just taking that off onto my towel or face washer, and I'll just test it on my hand first because that needs to be really light and soft and dry. And then it's a really light movement. You don't want too much of this, otherwise you'll have a line, but it does sort of provide a bit of a background to the eyelashes that we're going to pop on later. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some stenciling detail on the top. So I'm going to spray the sponge again and just use this same cake that you've been using. And then we're going to use this bright bubble stencil. And when you use stencils, it's really important to make sure that the paint that you're using is quite dry. You definitely don't want there to be too much water on here. If you're not sure, press it out onto a towel. So I'm making sure that this stencil is clean. So if you've used it previously, it will need to be clean. I'm going to just press it gently onto the forehead, and then I'm going to start with the darkest colour on top and just gently press an upside down V shape. So using the same cake again, so all this will match together because you're using the same colours. You can use the red, but you can also go over onto the orange a little bit to take the intensity out of the red. I'm using quite a small brush here, but you can probably use a bigger brush. Because that's going to make it a lot easier to find a symmetrical pattern there. So to do that, I'm using this little finger dauber, so you can literally put it on your finger. It's quite easy to use. I'm not going to spray the paint again. I'm just going to either dip this into your cup of water, or I'm going to use this lid again, because again I can already feel that's too much water on there, so I'm just going to pat that on my towel. And for a little bit of depth in the dots, you can pick up the red and the orange. And we're going to have the smiley dots on the cheeks, so we'll start. We have one there. And then I'm just, again, pouncing it like I did with the other sponge, and just twisting it gently because you don't want these to be too caked on. Using your brush again, just connect the mouth to the dots. It's an easier way of making sure that you, and then just kind of curve that, make that a little bit thicker as it goes towards the mouth. And I'm using the Face Paints Australia black, so this is quite a strong black. So I'm not going to spray this, I'm going to go into it with a wet brush. The line work we're going to do here, there's going to be 2 lines here, so we're going to, using the tip of the brush, we're going to start at the corner of the eye and press the brush down and swirl it in. I'm going to do a slightly different one on the other side as well, just in case that's a bit too much. And then I'm going to start in that swirl, come round and just give that, you're almost creating a false eyebrow. So what I'm doing there is I'm pressing from thick to thin, so your brush can create really thin lines and quite thick lines depending on how you press. So I'm pressing down and then releasing it and taking the pressure off, so you get that thin line at the end. And then we're going to paint 3 little lashes on each side. It's nice to have these not parallel, so slightly coming out following the shape of the face. And I'm just using the tip of the brush here. And the last stage is to put some bling on to finish off the crown, eyelashes. Sorry. When you do this, you're going to have some Pros-Aid glue, and you will dab a dot of glue at the end of each one of these eyelashes, and then leave it to dry for about a minute or so. It's a bit of a leap of faith, but the Pros-Aid does go tacky.